What time is it? What day is it? Where am I? Who am I? If you're finding yourself dealing with a lockdown that feels like it might never end, or you're just struggling with the general stupidity it seems to bring out in some people, don't have an existential crisis. Watch this video for practical advice on how to look after your mental health during lockdown. Get settled and let's talk about mental health. Hi, I'm Jeremy Godwin, and today on Let's Talk About Mental Health TV, I'm talking about 5 tips to help you look after your mental health during lockdown. And if you stick around to the end, I'll be sharing a bonus tip or two which can make these difficult times even easier to deal with. Here in Australia, and also in other countries like New Zealand, we are currently, the majority of us, in lockdown. Sydney is up to about week 852 at this stage. Melbourne, well, they've been in lockdown so often that they're actually scared to look at the sky. So I say that in full jest, and my sincere, kind thoughts go out to everyone in the cities that have been affected. We're not immune to this in the countryside either. I left the city back in 2015, and who knows for us how much longer this will go on for. It's been a couple of weeks so far. Which, look, let's be honest, lockdown makes it hard to stay positive and chipper all the time. I just had a bit of a wobble this morning as well. So today I want to share a few tips to help you really look after your mental health and well-being during lockdown. And so let's begin and jump in with take things one day at a time. Because the cold hard reality is we don't know what tomorrow will bring. Every time our politicians, bless their hearts, make comments about coming out of lockdown and things like that, inevitably the next day it seems that the numbers get higher and higher. The reality is that those things are out of your control, and I'll come back to control a little bit later on. But all you can do at this point is focus on the day that you are currently in. If you start worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, the next month, the month after that, it can become really overwhelming. When you're going through any kind of challenging time, take things one step at a time, one day at a time, and focus on what is immediately within your control. Which brings me to my next point. Practice acceptance and release control. All that you can directly control is yourself in terms of your words, actions, and feelings, and more specifically, what you do with your feelings. Everything else is outside of your direct control. Sure, you can influence it, you can share your opinion, you can ask people to come a particular way or have conversations and things, but at the end of all of that, you have no direct control. It is only yourself that you can actually make say something or not say something, make do something or not do something. And so when you apply that to what's going on at the moment, certainly here in Australia, the reality is that I don't know about you, but I get quite frustrated with our state government and our federal government on a regular basis, but I can't control that. What I can do is, yes, let my voice be heard, but I also need to practice acceptance. And so when you accept the things that you cannot control, you begin to feel a little bit more calm and peace of mind. Focus on what is within your immediate control, which is yourself, your words, actions, and feelings, and then look at how you can influence beyond that point for the positive. That brings me to my next point. Stay in regular contact with family and friends. And look, this is about actual regular contact. This isn't about just hitting like once a week on a post that they put on Instagram or Facebook, if they're still using Facebook. This is about actually having proper connections. This is actual phone conversations. This is jumping on a video chat if you can. If you are fortunate enough to be in the same bubble and able to physically see one another, or depending on the rules in your state or territory, then fantastic. The piece here is about recognizing that we need friends and family to support us, and they also need our support. And just maintaining that relationship via email or social media doesn't cut it. You cannot have a long-term sustainable quality relationship through likes and memes alone. Moving on to my next point, curate your social media. So speaking of memes, I love social media. I think it's absolutely fantastic, but I have reached a point where I have begun unfollowing anybody who doesn't add to my sense of positivity or who posts crackpot theories and conspiracies and that type of thing. Social media ideally should be a tool to brighten your day. And especially while you're going through things like lockdown or restrictions, very often we can tend to default to using social media as a means of getting a fix, of a little bit of inspiration and things like that. What you need to be mindful of is that whoever you follow, whatever they post is obviously going to be in your feed. And if you are if you are following people who are posting stuff that is not in line with good quality, positive thinking, then that is going to have an effect on you, especially if you're scrolling on a regular basis. So really think about how you do that, and really think about what your choices are and the types of accounts that you're following. Ideally, your social media feed should be somewhere that is positive and uplifting and inspiring, rather than somewhere that makes you feel like the end of the world is coming or the sky is falling. Next, limit your news intake. So let's take that social media thing one step further and let's just talk about news in general, whether it's shared via social media or whether it's actually going and watching the news or reading it online or whatever. Or if you're old school, physically going and getting a newspaper. Some people still do. The news is not renowned for sharing good, positive, happy stories about the best of humanity. Unfortunately, it is a fact of life for the majority of human beings that we pay far more attention to the negative than we do the positive. And news services focus on the negative. They focus on things that keep people watching. And at the moment, with all the challenges that are going on in the world, in addition to wherever you are, and I'm speaking primarily here for Australia, given that I live here, it really is easy to fall into the trap of doom scrolling, where you're just constantly going through and reading bad story after bad story after bad story, and it can absolutely suck any kind of positivity, any kind of optimism or hope out of you. I would recommend limiting your news intake to once a day. Now, I know that might sound extreme, but a couple of things. First of all, the nighttime news is designed to keep you watching so that there can be ad breaks run in between, and it's one of the primary periods for viewing audiences, which means that they are going to keep you watching as much as possible. And so if you're a little more careful about that, then you can be a bit more considerate about what you're actually consuming. Personally, I choose to use an objective source. Here in Australia, I use the ABC, simply because they tend to have more fair and balanced reporting. And I've also limited it to looking at the news at around about 11:30 every day, because that's after the New South Wales press conference has been held, where they talk about case numbers and they talk about what's happening in terms of restrictions, since I live in the state of New South Wales. Really think about how you consume news and media in general. And if you're reading or watching the news 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, or you're watching one of the 24/7 news channels, you are doing damage to yourself and your mental health. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat that. So limit your news intake. You are not going to miss out on anything. You can get a daily summary that gives you all of the information that you need without having to sit there and be fed all of the trauma that is going on in the world, or feels like it might be going on in the world, depending on what's going on. Which brings me to my bonus point. Seek out good news. And this is something that you'll probably have to be proactive about, because like I said before, the major news services are not in the habit of talking about the good stuff that happens in the world. You know, the type of stories where it's people and communities coming together for the betterment of their area, or just in general, the world that we live in. I promise you that this world is not all doom and gloom. So find accounts on social media that serve up good news. I follow a couple on Instagram like Upworthy and Tanks Good News. And you'll also find some news services that actually focus on these sort of more positive and balanced kind of reports. ABC News here in Australia has just started a newsletter where once a fortnight they're doing a roundup on more positive and balanced stories. And so it really is about looking at how do you actually do that on a proactive basis. It makes for a much better experience. And it's a great antidote to the daily parade of crappy headlines that seem to be happening at the moment. And because I'm feeling extra generous, I'm going to give you a bonus point, because that's so many bonuses that you may explode. Self-care for the win. You do you, boo-boo, and if that means that today you just want to curl up on the couch in your pajamas and watch a marathon of home improvement shows or Drag Race on repeat, you do what you've got to do. The thing is that self-care should be a daily focus, not just during lockdown, but in general, it should be a daily focus. And it's not indulgence, it's actually a means of looking after yourself and recharging your batteries. So do what works well for you. Read a book, go for a walk, cook a nice meal, play chess with a pigeon.
Squawk. Squawk, 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 squawk.
Do what makes you feel good. And please remember that when it comes to mental health, the more we talk about it, the easier it gets. So have conversations with trusted friends and family members about how you're feeling and about how they're feeling. And if you are struggling, reach out and work with a counselor or a therapist who can help to guide you in a much more objective and supportive kind of way. So that's it for this week's episode. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave me a lock emoji in the comments because, well, you know, lockdown. It's pretty literal, isn't it? Now, go and watch this video for more good stuff about better mental health and subscribe to my channel for weekly videos. And catch the Let's Talk About Mental Health podcast every Sunday on your favorite podcast platform. Take care and talk to you next time.